Okay, so it's been a minute since we had Pirkei Avos, and we are not continuing with our chapter 4 because I was asked to give this shiur to a women's group on Don Zechus, and I thought might as well give it to my shiur group and record it. So that's what we're doing tonight. And in fact, I guess we'll talk afterwards, or well, maybe I'll take a vote or something like that about whether we want to do the other clauses in the Mishnah, and see if that now that we're here. Okay, so Avos 1:6. So Yehoshua ben Parachia Omer, Aseh lecha rav, uknei lecha chaver, v'hevei dan es kol ha'adam lekaf zechus. Who would like to try? We'll translate the whole thing, even though we're only going to focus on the last clause. Yeah, Vanessa, go ahead.
I actually know this one. Okay.
Nice.
Um, Aselecha Rav, make for yourself a teacher, a Rav. Ukne lecha chaver, make acquire for yourself a friend. Veheve dan and veheve dan.
Yeah, Heve is a little
I
bit of a
judge.
weird language.
Yeah, that's the. Generally, it means judge everyone in the palm of
Yeah,
merit, but I'm trying to be more literal with
yeah.
it.
So Heve, I think best translation is you should. Don is called
Okay,
lekaf zechus.
that makes sense. Done. Judge every person in the palm of merit, literally, but favorably.
Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah. To the I'm gonna go ahead and say to the I don't know if there's a way to really translate the idiom into English and preserve the idiom. So the idiom, well, what does kaf refer to? And this is not one of our analysis questions. This is just shot here. What is kaf? I mean, palm is the literal
Palm.
translation, but what is it referring to in the mushal here? What did you say, Vanessa? I didn't hear.
No, I said palm. I thought you were
Okay,
asking
yeah.
about the literal.
Yeah, Tamar?
I mean, in like the phrase, the interpretation of the phrase, it means like the side or like interpretation, right?
Yeah, but it's more specific than that. Anyone know why we're using the word kaf here? Maybe this is not obvious. So what this is referring to is balance scale. I don't know what you call these kinds of
Okay,
scales.
I was gonna say that, but I thought it was
Yeah.
just a silly image I had in my head.
Yep.
Like, is
Nope. That's
one side favorably and one side
I think this
not?
is just shot. Okay, it's like one of these balance weighted scales. So you call this part of it the thing that you put the stuff in, to be eloquent, is a kaf, right? So I think saying it to the side of merit, uh, or you could say like to the favorable side is fine. If there's a way to express it in English where like you conjured up an image of a scale, then that'd be even better. But I don't know how to say that. So this is what we got. Okay. So just for the sake of people listening to this year who are not usually not familiar with our approach to Avos here, um, uh, I want to just clarify here. So there's a split in how people learn Pirkei Avos, and by people I mean the Mefarshim here. Is do you assume that all three clauses are related, are interrelated? You have to learn them in sequence and learn them as like one idea with three parts, or like some sort of like related idea, or do you assume that each one is independent? So for usually what we do is we just follow whoever the mafarshim are. Okay, tonight we're only doing two mafarshim, and both of them explain the third clause independently. So I'm going to gray out the first part here because to remind us that we are not asking questions on the first two clauses and we're not analyzing them. Okay, like I said, maybe we could do that next week, but I want to focus exclusively on Hevidanes Kolam Lukavsikus this time. Okay, so what are the questions and problems on that phrase? Yeah, Vanessa.
One problem, you can't. What if you're like literally watching someone murder another person? Like cold
Okay,
blood,
yeah.
just like pure evil. You're supposed to judge that person favorably. What does that mean?
Okay.
Every single person.
Okay. So there are two ways to ask this. Okay. And I think both of them are good. One is, um, I guess the most general way to ask it is what are the parameters of of uh of this practice, right? So how far do you have to I'll just use it in phrase bend your mind to judge someone favorably? And yeah, actually, I'll make this into two questions, right? So like for example, uh, if you if you uh if you witness a murder, okay, do you have to like think, oh, he thought the guy was a piñata and was trying to get candy for his nephew. Actually, I don't really need to write that. Okay, but like that's the type of thing I'm talking about. Like you really need to go that far. And then the second question is, yeah, thank you for appreciating my absurd example. The next yeah, I'll just say bent. Okay, next question is, does kol adam really mean kol adam? Okay. Yeah, kol. Hold on a second here. Kol. Why is this not working? Kol adam. Yeah. Okay. Does it really mean kol adam? So like, what? I guess do we have to judge Hitler favorably? Yeah. Well, let's do this to. People say Yamach Shemo, right? I prefer going with Shiri, right? Which is Zecher Tzadik Livracha is the first half of a pasuk, and so that's where we get the Zal from, Zichron Livracha or Zecher Tzadik Livracha. Shem Rishayim Yerkav is the second half. May the name of the wicked rot. So because I like Mishlei, we'll go Shri here. So yeah, does Kol Adam even include people like really, really bad? Yeah. Okay, tomorrow.
I think this might be a two-part question, but my one question is like, what's the benefit of this, I guess?
Okay, good. So what is, oops, I'm just clicking all over the place here. What is the purpose or benefit of this, right? I'll start it off with a why, right? Why? What is the purpose or benefit of this? Okay, and then the second part?
Is this really always beneficial? It's kind of like your question too.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think I am going to join that in, I'll include that in the same question. Okay. In the one that you just asked. And is this always beneficial? Yeah. Okay. Vanessa?
Okay, so we say judge every person's favorite. I'm gonna keep using the murdering mashal just because it's concrete and
Sure.
it's simple.
Yeah.
You see someone murdering in cold blood. You could judge favorably and be like, oh, maybe it's self-defense, or you could be like, oh, like it's a mitzvah to kill. Like how heavily do you need to weigh to the side of merit? If we're gonna use the balance beams, right? Like, do you just need
Yeah.
to like throw a little few coins in there, or do you like really need to tip it until they're meritorious? I think that's more my question. Like,
Oh, okay. Okay.
yeah,
So how Zechusi is Zechus?
exactly. So
Yeah.
like you
Okay.
could
Right.
say like, okay, that's a murderer, but maybe he had a hard life. That's in the judge of merit. Like, okay, maybe he's not an
Okay.
awful
That's a good
person,
question. Yeah.
or you have to go all the way. Yeah.
Okay, good. Surprisingly, so I've usually I only give shiur to to this group, but because I was at Nija this week, so I did this once with a student who I'm tutoring. I did this once with a group of students in the high school. I did this once with a women's shiur, and no one's asked that question. Okay, so it's a good question. So I'm gonna actually order this over here, which is how I'll say the way I said it. How Zechusi is Zechus. Okay, meaning, meaning, do you have to judge them favorably until you remove the bad assumption, or do you actually have to see their act as meritorious or virtuous? Okay, so for example, the murderer had a bad upbringing. Okay, and sorry, upbringing, and yeah, fine, that's fine. Versus, he thought he was acting in self-defense. Yeah, that's a great example. Okay, yeah, Alex.
In this case, like, what is the context of the judging? Like, are we talking in a court of law?
Okay,
Are we
good.
talking person to person?
Okay, good. So I'm going to put this before the parameters. What is the context of the judging? Okay, is this in a court of law? Okay, which, by the way, as are like the surrounding mishnayos. Okay, so for example, I'll just show you. In Pirkei Avos, we've mentioned many times throughout our shiur that Tehillim is primarily for judges and leaders and people who are trying to become Hasidim. But the first parak is very judge heavy. So for example, heavy misunim bedin, be deliberate in judgment. Okay, then you got the second one is not, third one is not. Fourth one is not. Okay, maybe I'm refuting myself here. I thought there were a lot of judge ones. Oh, so then 8 is you've been taught by Omer. Al tas atzmaka orchei hadayanim. Don't make yourself like the arrangements of judges. And then he talks about how to treat the litigants. And then 9 talks about how to interrogate the witnesses. Yeah, fine. Okay, so in other words, like there are a lot of things here about judges. And then okay, or is this in all contexts or in some specific other context? Okay, I see a question in the chat from Racheli. Do you have to judge the action favorably or the person's intention behind it? Should one assume the action itself was a righteous action or just that the person didn't want to do something wrong? Okay, so by the way, a lot of these questions do overlap, but I think I can extract out of that another question, which is, practically speaking, how does one do this, right? Does this involve, or actually, you know what? Maybe I should say like this. What aspect of the person are we judging? Okay, there are, you know, are we interpreting their action and trying to see the good in it, or positing an intention or something else? Okay, yeah, Vanessa?
I actually don't have this question myself, but I feel like someone raised the argument, oh, but like, shouldn't we just not judge? Shouldn't we not be judgmental?
Good. Okay, yeah, that I think is a great question that will be very fruitful, which is, why do we have to judge at all? Why can't we suspend judgment? Yeah. Okay, what else? We've got most of them, but I think there are more questions. Yeah, Vanessa?
Just another thing on the every person, is it every single person we encounter? Is it like, should we like go out of our way? I think that's my question. Like, do we have to go out of our way to like judge everyone favorably and to like cultivate this, or
Okay.
is it just like every person we encounter? I don't know if
Yeah,
that's
so
like
I'm actually going to put that into the question about the context, okay? Likewise, do we have to go out of our way to find people to judge favorably? Or is it just when we, you know, when, let's say, like just when someone wrongs us, or when we encounter someone or see something or hear something? Okay, like what's the machayev, right? That's the halakhic way. What is the machayev here? Meaning what, i.e., what triggers the obligation? Yeah. Okay, Tamar?
This might be outside the scope of the shiur, but there's some other, I don't know if it's also Pirkei Avos, right? That says something different about how you should judge people. Like you should judge Yerushalayim for bad, something like that.
Oh, is there?
Maybe this is the Rambam. Yeah. But I don't have the source in front of me. It's in Rabbi Feder's book where he talks about this.
Okay, so
I
we
think
might
it's the
get into,
Rambam.
I mean, we will get into the Rambam here, but yeah, I think
yeah,
sounds like that would fit into our question of does kol adam mean kol adam? And if not, then it's supposed to do, yeah. Okay, speaking of that, I think another question is, what do you have to ask whenever you see a statement in halacha that says, you know, that specifies kol? I mean, we said who is the, you know, is it really everyone? But like, yeah, I mean, I don't want to give it away. So a question we usually ask is, what's the havamina, right? You know, like, why do we have to be told every person? Meaning, what would we have assumed, and then why do we have to be told every person? So what is the hava amina? Which means our initial flawed assumption. You know, why do we have to be told this? Okay, what would we have thought? Okay, and evidently not kol adam, but who? And how does this correct that flawed assumption? Okay, I see at least 2 more questions. One is a major question, one is a nitpicky question, and maybe there are more. but those are the only ones I see. Let's start with a nitpicky question, which is, and this is kind of, requires some knowledge of Hebrew here. What's weird about this phrase? Dan es kol ha'adam l'kaf zechus. Or if you were writing it, how would you write it? That's different than this. Yeah, Tamar?
It kind of sounds like it's a singular judgment for all people, like it's like a mix of singular and plural.
Yeah, okay. So so the question here is why is this formulated as kol ha-adam rather than kol adam? Okay. Now, I'm going to go ahead and answer this question now, just to get it out of the way. So I noticed, first of all, that none of the Rishonim who I regularly learn, I can't say no commentator, no Rishon does this, but none of the Rishonim I learn, none of them answer that question. Okay. So I'm assuming that kol ha'adam is the same as kol adam. All right. Secondly, and I found precedent for this. Actually, someone pointed this out to me. I asked about this on Facebook. Someone pointed out that there's a pasuk we're very familiar with, which is the last pasuk in Tehillim. Okay, kol haneshama tehalel yah, hallelujah. So, assuming neshama means soul or breath. So, how do we translate that pasuk? Yeah, Tamar?
All souls praise God.
Yeah, all souls praise God, right? Or every soul praises God. Let's just see how Neiman Novetzky says it. Yeah, every breath shall praise Hashem. The Targum says kol nishmasa teshabach ka hallelujah, which means every breath should praise Hashem. One other one I wanted to point out is the Metzudas David, who does Pshat here. He says, "V'amar ki kol mi sheyesh bo neshama v'nefesh maskeles tahalla as Hashem." Anyone who has a neshama and a rational soul should praise God. So in other words, no one says, or not no one, but plain shot is it doesn't mean the entire soul should praise God. It means every soul should praise God. Okay. So to here, it doesn't mean judge the entire person, but it means judge every person. Okay. So that's one. Second thing I wanted to mention about that is there are versions of the Mishnah, there are Rishonim who don't have it as kol ha'adam, but they say kol adam. Okay. So, and then lastly, there are some people who give an interpretation, like I've only seen Hasidic sources give an interpretation of judge the entirety of the person, and I'm sure you could get good ideas out of that. But the fact that none of the Rishonim say this to me means that it's just a grammatical quirk. Okay, so so if we can come up with an idea, fine. But I'm going to go ahead and treat this as though this question is answered. Okay, Vanessa.
In the previous parak, not even parak, in the previous pasuk, doesn't it say ha-isha also? Isn't that the same question there for different reasons, obviously, but am I making a mistake? I thought it was.
No, so you are right, but that has an answer. Okay. You're referring to the previous Mishnah, which says Yehoshua ben Parach of Nitar Beli, Yehoshua ben Parach. Oh, sorry, I thought that's the one we were doing. Yeah, v'al tar b'sicha im ha'isha. Don't converse excessively with the woman, right? So a lot of people misread this to mean don't converse excessively with women, but it does not say that. It does not say im nashim, and it doesn't even say im isha. It says ha'isha. So the Mefarshim explain, I don't know if this is unanimous, but the Mefarshim that I teach this with explain that it means your wife, okay? And the proof is the very next sentence says, Be'ishto amru. This was said regarding his wife. Kal v'chomer be'eshes chavero. So all the more so with your friend's wife. So it means really with the wife, okay? So it's primarily directed at one's own wife, but certainly another person's wife. It does not mean with women. And again, easy way to say with women is im nashim or im isha, with a woman, okay? So there is a real reason for it. Here, it just seems like a stylistic quirk. Okay.
Okay. No, right, I was going for rhetorical analysis. It failed.
Okay. There's one more question which we always ask, which we need to ask here. We always ask this in every Mishnah and Pirkei Avos. Yeah, Tamar?
What level of person is this for?
Yeah. Okay. Who is the intended audience? Okay. And again, so the premise here, Pirkei Avos is meant primarily for judges, leaders, and for people who are already tzaddikim and are aspiring to be chasidim, to be extra righteous. So, so to what extent is this directed at the higher level demographics? Okay, so that's leaders, judges, talmidei chachamim, and to what extent is this directed at us? Okay, now I'm gonna also ask a question here. I guess this could be another question, included in that question, but I'm gonna put it as another question here. What is the baseline halacha, and what is considered lifnim mishuras hadin? Okay, beyond the letter of the law. Okay, the reason why I'm asking this is because, like I said, we're gonna do 2 mafarshim tonight. Actually, let me just look this up here. Okay, so we're gonna do only 2 mafarshim tonight. We're gonna do Rambam and Rashi. Okay, so there may be other mafarshim who disagree with what we learn. However, there is this pasuk in Vayikra 19:15 that says, "Lo tasu avil b'mishpat, lo tisaf pnei dal, lo sehadar pnei gadol, b'tzedek tishpot amisacha." So do not do an injustice in judgment. Do not show favoritism to the poor. Do not glorify in the presence of a great person, and judge your people with righteousness. And I believe there's a chazal. Let's just trust that the Torah Tamima brings this down. There is a chazal on B'tzedek Tishpot Amisacha. Let's see if he says it. Yes. Mikan shetzarich ladun es chaver l'kav zechus. From here, you learn that a person needs to judge his fellow favorably. Okay. Yeah. So I've heard tell, I don't know for sure, I've heard tell that there are people who hold that this halacha, that this dana skol ad l'kav zechus is baseline halacha. Okay. I don't think that's the case for 2 reasons. One is it's in Pirkei Avos. Okay, and Pirkei Avos is for Hasidim. People want to be Hasidim, not for baseline halacha. Secondly, we're going to see the Rambam does not hold that this is the baseline halacha. So what we need to know is, where does the baseline halacha end and the lifnim mishuras hadin, the beyond the letter of the law, begin? Okay, any other questions? Yeah, Tamar.
Related to what you were just bringing up, like, how does this square with the idea that in a court of law you have to judge truthfully?
Oh, okay, that's a
As
good
a
question also. Right. Yeah, so that's a good question. I'm just trying to debate whether I want to put that in question 1 or in I'm going to put this in the parameters question, okay? What about scenarios or settings where your job is to judge accurately? Okay. Judges judging a case. Yeah. Okay, great question. Okay, I'm going to post the questions in the chat. Now, ordinarily, I would open the floor and see if you want to answer these questions on your own. But having had experience giving this year before, I think the best approach that we're going to take is we're going to look at the Rambam and see which questions he answers, and then which questions he raises, not he raises, which questions what new problems he raises. Okay, then we're going to look at Rashi and do the same, and then we're going to try to come up with answers for everything. Okay, hold on just a second. I'm just typing this out in the chat. That's through 8, and then last one is 9, 9, 10, and 11. Okay, so let's go to Rambam. Okay, unless anyone has any other questions. I'll just give people a moment to process. Okay, so I'm going to go to the Rambam, and I'm going to read this in Hebrew and translate, okay? But just remember that Rambam did not write in Hebrew here. He wrote in Judeo-Arabic, and there are different Hebrew translations. I don't know if I like this translation, so at one point I'm going to switch over to what I think is a clear translation. Okay, So he says like this: Hebidanas kol anu l'kavskos inyano. This means she'im yehi adam she'eno yodua lacha. If there's a person whom you don't know, lo teida im tzadiku o rasha. You don't know if he's a tzaddik or a rasha. V'tirehu ose ma'aseh o omer davar. And you see him do something or say something. She'im yeforash be'ofen ma harihu tov. That if you interpret it one way, it would be good. V'im tefarshehu be'ofen acher. And if you interpret it another way, harihu ra, then it's bad. So what do? Parshehu ketov. You should interpret it as good. Val takshov bo ra, and do not think badly of him. Okay, so that's case number one. All right, I'm gonna actually just modify this so I can. Actually, I'll find it. I'll keep it here. Okay, aval. However, im haya ish yadua shu tzadik. If there's a person who is known to be a tzaddik, umafursam b'maaseh tov, and he's renowned. He's renowned for his good actions. V'nira lo ma'aseh shekol tuchonosav yoru al hayoso ma'aseh ra, and he does an action that all aspects of it indicate that it's bad. V'ein lahachriya bo shu ma'aseh tov ela bedochak rav ma'od u'v'efsharus ruchoka, and the only way to judge it as good is with a very unlikely, far-fetched possibility. Tzarich lefarish oso ketov. You need to explain it as good. Because there's a possibility that it's good. Vein mutter lochashdo, it's not mutter to suspect him. Amru yomru, regarding this, they said kol hachoshed b'ksherim loke begufo. Anyone who suspects those who are kasher, those who are proper, should be stricken in their body. And Tamar says in the chat, this is the quote from the Rambam I was thinking of earlier. I figured that was the case. Okay, so that's why I didn't want to say then. Okay, so that's the tzaddik. I'll summarize at the end, by the way. Rasha. So too, if he was a rasha, v'nis parsumu masav, and his deeds were publicized. Then you see him do an action where all indications point to the fact that it's good. But there's a remote possibility that it's bad. And you need to guard against him. V'lo lahamin botov, and to not believe good of him. Hoil v'yesh l'ra, efsharos l'ra, since there is a possibility that it's evil. Amar, it says in Mishlei, ki yichanin kolo, although he makes his voice gracious, al tamin bo, do not believe him, ki sheva toivos belivo, because there's 7 abominations in his heart. Then the Rambam circles back, v'imahaya bilti yadua, if he's not known, v'maisa nota el echad mishnei haktzavos, and you need to, and his action inclines to either of the two extremes. Then it is necessary by way of virtue to judge him favorably. Whichever of the two sides there is. Okay, now you'll notice in the English translation, I put in a phrase here. This is where I want to switch to a different translation. Kafech is clear, okay? Because by the tzaddik, he says, Harechova lefarsho shu tov. For the tzaddik, he says, you're obligated to judge him favorably. By the rasha, he says, Sarech lihizahar mimenu, you need to guard against him. And then for the Benoni, I'm calling him a Benoni, for the unknown guy, Chova b'derech hachasidus laduno l'kavzuhus. It is an obligation by way of piety or extra righteousness to judge him favorably. Okay, so let's summarize this. Okay, so what is the baseline halacha according to the Rambam? I'll put this on the screen. Yeah, Vanessa?
Okay, so the Rambam limits it to a person you don't know, and also to a situation where the action could be interpreted in either direction. So someone.
Okay, so you are as my Israeli graduate professor Rabbi Dr. Chaim Foreman said, that's a correct answer to a different question. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So hold that thought. Okay. Anyone want to take another stab at it? What's the baseline halacha according to the Rambam? Yeah, Racheli?
If it's a tzaddik, then you have to judge him favorably, even if you have to go out of your way to do so. If it's a rasha, then you must be on guard against him, and even if there's a way to assume it was good, you shouldn't necessarily.
Yep.
And if it's someone who you don't know about them, I forgot.
Okay, so let's start with this, right? So if it is a known tzaddik, so judge ambiguous actions favorably, even ones that look bad. Okay. And he adds it's essentially usher to suspect him. Okay. Known Russia, judge ambiguous actions unfavorably, even ones that look good, and guard against him. Okay. Now here's the part that is a little unclear at first. Okay, so I'm going to say this. Okay, and then I'll go back and show you where we get this from the Rambam. If he is unknown, okay, you can judge him however you want. That's the baseline halacha. However, midas chasidus, extra righteous conduct, is judge him favorably. Okay, so let me go back and show you how this is. The reason why this is a little confusing is the Rambam started off by saying, if there's a person you don't know, and you see him do an action, that's ambiguous, interpret it as good and don't think badly of him. So you might think that the Rambam is saying you have to do that. But that's why it's very important to go back and see when he summarizes that case at the end, he says it is necessary by way of midas chasidus to judge him to the side of merit. Okay. And I think because the Rambam just got through saying in his intro to Pirkei Avos that the whole book is about midas chasidus, then it's very clear that this first sentence is also intended to be stood as midas chasidus. So if that's midas chasidus, then the baseline is you can judge him however you want. You're only obligated to judge the tzaddik favorably and to judge the Russia unfavorably, or maybe you're not even obligated to judge the Russia that way. It depends on if you say, when Kafik says, sarich lihizahar mimenu. Oh, wait, so, sorry. Yeah, sarich lihizahar mimenu of lo lahamin botov. He doesn't say you're obligated like he does with the tzaddik, okay? But definitely tzaddik, you're obligated to judge him favorably. Russia, you're either obligated or you should judge him unfavorably. And then the unknown, you can judge him however you want. But then if you want to be a chassid, you should judge him favorably. Okay. And I have another solid proof from the Rambam for this later on. But I'm not going to bring it up. And the proof, I'll tell you half the proof. Half the proof is if you look at where the Rambam codifies this, he does not codify this in Ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha. He codifies it in a place that is undeniably midas chasidus. Okay, so we'll look at that later. Okay, any questions on the facts of the Rambam before we analyze the Rambam? Okay, so now what are the questions and problems on the Rambam? Yeah, Racheli.
Okay, so one is, how do you define who's a tzaddik and who's a rasha?
Okay.
And two is, this is more of a practical and possibly related to like today question, but I feel like in today's world, there's a lot of room for people to have a righteous name or to be seen as a tzaddik and then do really bad things. And if you judge them favorably, then really bad things are allowed. And
okay, good question. Okay, so part of that question is going to be on the parameters question from before, but just filter through the Rambam specific opinion. But question is, I'll start with the first question. How do you define someone as a tzaddik and know that you're right? And then like similar for the Russia, okay? Or likewise for the Russia. Likewise for the Russia. It's more pressing for the tzaddik, I think. And then the other question that you asked is, what about, like, I guess actually I'm gonna just attach this to the question. Moreover, how do you know that he's not a counterfeit tzaddik, and that your good judgments are furthering the evil he's doing? Yeah, okay.
Also, does the person who is unknown refer to someone who you can't decide or someone who's like a stranger to you? Because maybe you just don't know if the person you know is good or bad. Okay,
so good question. The way that the Rambam sounds in this translation is Adam she'eno yadua lacha, a person who's not known to you. And then similarly, imhai bilti yadua, and in the kafech, imhai bilti yadua. So it just sounds like you don't know the guy. Okay. but I think there's a hidden question in there, given the fact that it's if you just don't know the guy. Anyone? What? Yeah, Tamar.
I'm not sure if this is the direction you're going, but like maybe you should just ask somebody who knows him.
Okay,
Like,
that could
do
be.
you have any responsibility to like
Yeah,
find out anything about him?
mine's a more fundamental problem here. Yeah, Vanessa.
What gives you the right to judge them at all, first of all? And also, how do you know that they're like, maybe they are a tzaddik and you just don't know about it, but you're not supposed to judge a tzaddik, or vice versa for the Russia.
Okay, so we already asked the question about why are we judging anyone at all? So that we already listed. And then the second one is it is interesting. I mean, you're kind of pointing out a a limit in the Rambam. Rambam does not say that Dan L'Kaf Zechus means that you have to judge unknown people as tzaddikim, right? That's how he's answering the parameters question. So that's interesting. So the question I was looking for is, what about people you do know, but who are neither tzaddikim nor rishayim? Right? What is the halacha there? Right? It doesn't fit into any of the Rambam's cases because known tzaddik, known rasha, unknown person. But what about known person? Right? So known person. Right? A known person who is neither tzaddik nor rasha. Okay, so that's another question on the Rambam. So these are good questions. Okay. And I guess it really raises a problem. But what are some other questions here?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
It's
sure.
Erica.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
It's interesting that the determination of how you should judge someone should be dependent on your level, meaning
Okay.
what's the purpose of judging? Presumably, there's like the whole purpose of judging should be like there's a certain function or purpose. And
Right.
so if so, there should be clear guidelines of how you do it, which
Right.
makes sense in the first, the known tzaddik and known rasha. But in the third case, it's more like it's the character of the judger. So then why maybe say don't judge at all?
Yeah. Okay, good. So I'm going to broaden that question in a way that's going to set us up for understanding the machlokas between the Rambam and Rashi, okay, which is, why does the Rambam care about the known status of the person anyway? Okay, why not just judge, like, where does he get, I guess both questions, like, yeah, why not just judge the action, and also, and where does he get this from? Okay, does that capture your question, or am I missing your question?
Well, I guess just maybe missing the question. I guess the fact that it's telling a righteous person versus an average person to judge possibly differently, it seems like.
Well, hold on just a second. Are you presuming that the audience is only high level people?
No, because if you're not a high level person, then you could judge it in however you want.
No. Okay, so I think this is the misunderstanding. It's not if you're a known tzaddik. If the person you are judging is a known tzaddik.
No, I understand, but the unknown, like for the unknown person,
yeah.
The midat chasidut is judge who favorably?
Judge the unknown person.
Unknown person. So,
yeah.
Right. So that's the case where if you're a baseline for the unknown person, you could judge him however you want.
Right.
But if you are a chassid, you should judge him favorably.
Right. If you are a chassid, or if you want to engage in chassid conduct.
So that, to me, the fact that it's giving two guidance of how you should judge, calls into question what's this purpose of judging to begin with.
Okay, good. So how about this? Okay, I'm gonna ask a question and then highlight how you just answered it. Okay, which is like this: okay, Rambam doesn't state the purpose, right? Of this. Is the purpose to get at the objective truth, or is it, I guess, or do we, I'm going to put it in quotes, not care so much, okay, about the objective truth, and we're trying to achieve something else. Okay, and what you're revealing here is, I'm just going to put this as a bullet point for the answer part, is a step here is the fact that we have two options for judging a Benoni indicates that we're not trying to get at the truth here. Okay, an example would be like if you are picture a case where you're trying to get at the truth according to everyone. If you are a mathematician, okay, and you're calculating numbers, we don't say, well, if you're a regular mathematician, then you could go with this standard. But if you want to be righteous, then go with that standard. No, because mathematics is about the truth, or a scientist, you know? So it sounds like the fact that there are two levels means that Rambam is not concerned with getting at the truth. He's concerned with something else.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, good. So that was a good question and good step towards an answer. Okay. Other questions here? Any other questions? Maybe this is included in Racheli's thing, but I'm just going to ask it anyway, which is that, do we not believe that people can change? Okay. You know, can't a tzaddik do an avera? You know, can't a Russia turn over a new leaf? And if so, you know, how is it like, you know, rational or fair to automatically make these assumptions about these two extremes? Okay. Okay. I think those are my questions on the Rambam. Anyone have any other questions on the Rambam before we go to Rashi? Again, the plan is going to be go to Rashi, get questions on him, and then we'll try to answer all the questions. Yeah, Racheli.
Okay, first of all, this might just be on the pasuk itself, and also I don't know if it makes sense, but could there be a question on like what exactly does it mean to judge? Like maybe if this is an instruction for judges, for example, it would mean pass a verdict favorably or unfavorably, versus like in your head, like yeah, I don't know.
So that is a good question. I think we already covered that in or did we not? Maybe we didn't. Thought we did. Hold on a second. All right. Yeah, I guess we didn't. Okay. Wait. Oh yeah, I guess we kind of put it here. I want to actually ask this in a different way. In my mind, when we asked this question, we were asking Racheli's question, which is what is included in the act of judging? Okay. Are we interpreting their action and trying to see good in it? You know, or positive intention or something else? Are we pronouncing a judgment, or, you know, are we changing the way we behave? Right. Okay. In other words, like, how does the judgment manifest itself? What is included in the scope of the judgment? You know, is it purely in heart? Is it in speech? Is it in action, etc.? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions before we move on to Rashi? Okay, let's do Rashi. Okay. So Rashi, so scrap the Rambam for a second. Okay, just open your mind to Rashi. All right, Rashi says, "V'vidanas kol adam l'kav zechus, al kol ma shetishma alav," regarding anything you hear about him, about a person. Emor shnischaven latova, say that he intended for good. Ad sheteda beverur, until you know with clarity, meaning with certainty, im latova niskaven, im lara'a niskaven, whether he intended for good or intended for bad. Sh'imata osakain, because if you do this, danin oscha lamala l'zechus, then they will judge you from on high for merit, favorably. Okay, meaning God will judge you favorably. Okay, and the they, by the way, is just like the heavenly court. Okay, but it means God. Kamosha maforish, but Bamei Madlikin, as it says in Bamei Madlikin, but Tzarek Lomer Mafanin. Okay, it's a different parak in Gemara Shabbos. Okay, so let's read the Gemara in Shabbos. Okay, so here's the Gemara. Tan Rabbanan Hadan Chaver L'Kav Zchus Dani Oso Lizchus. The sages taught in the Brisa, one who judges another favorably is himself judged favorably. Now, this is a long Gemara. I'm going to actually just read this in English because the nuances don't really matter in the Hebrew until the end. Okay, so it's going to give 3 stories. There was an incident involving a certain person who descended from the Upper Galilee and was hired to work for a certain homeowner in the south for 3 years. On Erev Yom Kippurim, on the Eve of Atonement, the Day of Atonement, he said to the homeowner, "Give me my wages." So again, you got to picture this and put yourself in this poor guy's shoes. You're working for this guy for 3 years. Erev Yom Kippur, you say, "Can you pay me my money? And I'm going to go home and feed my wife and children." Okay. The homeowner said to him, "I have no money." He said to him, "In that case, give me my wages in the form of produce." He said to him, "I have none." The worker said, "Give me my wages in the form of land." The homeowner said to him, "I have none." The worker said to him, "Give me my wages in the form of animals." He said to him, "I have none." The worker said to him, "Give me cushions and blankets." He said to him, "I have none." The worker slung his tools over his shoulder behind him and went to his home in anguish. Okay. After Sukkot, so that is 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 plus 8 is 13 days later, 14 days later. The homeowner took the worker's wages in hand, and along with a load that required 3 donkeys, one laden with food, one laden with drink, one laden with types of sweets, and went to the worker's home. After they ate and drank, the homeowner gave him his wages. So not only did he pay him his wages, he brought like a whole entourage of party supplies and like threw a party. Okay, and then gave him his wages. Okay, then they talk. Homeowner said to him, "When you said to me, 'Give me my wages,' and I said, 'I have no money,' of what did you suspect me?" Okay, meaning, why did you not suspect me of trying to avoid paying you? The worker answered, "I said, perhaps the opportunity to purchase merchandise inexpensively presented itself, and you purchased it with the money you owed me, and therefore you had no money available." Meaning, you saw an opportunity to make a quick and a good investment, so you just put all your money into that. The homeowner asked, "And when you said to me, 'Give me my animals,' and I said, 'I have no animals,' of what did you suspect me?" The worker answered, "I said, perhaps the animals are hired to others." The homeowner asked, "When you said, 'Give me my land,' and I said, 'I have no land,' or 'Give me land,' and I said, you said, 'I have no land,' of what did you suspect me?" The worker answered, "I said, perhaps the land is leased to others, and you cannot take land from the lessees." The homeowner asked, "When you said to me, 'Give me produce,' and I said, 'I have no produce,' of what did you suspect me?" The worker answered, "I said, perhaps they are not tithed, and that was why you cannot give them to me." And I guess tithing all the produce, you need to tithe all from all the produce, and maybe it was too cumbersome, etc. And remember, this is Sukkot, right? So all the harvest has just been brought in, but like he's not going to be able to tithe it really quickly. The homeowner asked, "And when I said, 'I have no cushions or blankets,' of what did you suspect me?" The worker answered, "I said, perhaps he consecrated all his property to heaven, and therefore he has nothing available at the present." Okay, he gave it all dedicated to the Mikdash. The homeowner said to him, "I swear by the temple service that it was so. I had no money available at the time because I vowed and consecrated all my property." And I took out this part here. The Gemara goes into a weird mini side plot about why he consecrated his property, which I thought was distracting. "And when I came to my fellow residents in the south, the sages of that generation, they dissolved all my vows. At that point, the homeowner immediately gone to pay his worker. Now the homeowner said, 'And you,'" now here's the part we need to do in Hebrew, "Kashem shedantani l'zchus kach, hamakum yadin oskal l'zchus." Just as you judge me favorably, so too God should judge you favorably. Okay, that's story number 1. Story number 2. On a similar note, the Gemara relates that the sages taught in a brisa there was an incident involving a certain pious man who redeemed a young Jewish woman from captivity. When they arrived at the inn, he had her lie beneath his feet. The next day, he descended, immersed in a mikveh to purify himself, and taught his students. Okay, this conduct could arouse suspicion that the pious man kept the maiden for himself, as immersion in the morning is customary for men who have experienced a seminal emission by engaging in sexual relations. Okay, so that was back in the day when men would go to the mikveh after having a seminal emission. The pious man said to his students, "When I had her lie beneath my feet, of what did you suspect me?" They said to him, "We said, perhaps there's a student among us whose conduct is not established before the rabbi." And he wanted to make certain that this student would not inappropriately accost the young woman. Thereby, for the rabbi kept the woman close by. By the way, this is a good proof for the Rambam against Rashi. Okay, because yeah, you tell me why is this excerpt here a good proof for the Rambam against Rashi? Yeah, Tamar?
They're judging their Rav favorably, but they're judging the student poorly.
Right. Rashi holds that you just judge the action and you don't really care about who the person is, but Rambam holds specifically a tzaddik. And so they are clearly not judging their fellow students favorably. Now you could answer it and you could say, well, it's not like they were suspecting a specific student. They were just saying maybe there is a student. So fine. Okay, anyway, he said to them, "When I descended and immersed, of what did you suspect me?" They answered, "Perhaps due to the exertion of travel, a seminal mission befell the rabbi." He said to them, "I swear by the temple service that it was so, and you, just as you judge me favorably, so may God judge you favorably." Okay, and then the last one, The sages taught in a similar brisa. Once there was a certain matter needed by Torah scholars. They went to discuss the issue with a certain matron whose company was kept by all the prominent people of Rome. The Torah scholars wanted to address the government on behalf of the Jewish people, and they sought the matron's advice. They said, "Who will go?" Rabbi Yeshua said to them, "I shall go." Rabbi Yeshua and his students went to her. When he arrived with his students at the entrance of her house, he removed his tefillin at the distance of 4 cubits from the door and entered and locked the door before him. After he emerged, he descended and immersed in a mikveh and taught his students. Here, too, was conduct that could arouse suspicion that something improper transpired. And he said to his students, "When I removed the tefillin, of what did you suspect me?" They said to him, I'm waiting for Racheli to post in the chat. OMG, I remember this one too. The rabbi must hold that sacred items may not enter a place of impurity. Therefore, it would have been inappropriate to enter the house with tefillin. He asked, "When I locked the door, of what did you suspect me?" They said, we said, "Perhaps there is a discreet royal matter that must be discussed between him and her. And it should not be revealed." Rabbi Yeshua asked, "When I descended and immersed, of what did you suspect me?" They said, "Perhaps a bit of spittle sprayed from her mouth onto the rabbi's clothes." The sages decreed that the legal status of a Gentile is like that of a Zav, and their bodily fluids transmit ritual impurity. Rabbi Yeshua said to them, "I swear by the temple service that it was so, and you, just as you judge favorably, so may God judge favorably." Okay, so that's the Gemara. All right. But going back to Rashi here, Rashi's main point is, so summary of Rashi, okay, is unlike Rambam, Rashi seemingly doesn't care who the person is. Okay. All people means all people. All right, that's number one. Number two, what do you notice about how Rashi is interpreting the act of judging favorably? Like, what does Rashi emphasize in about what aspect of the person you're judging? Yeah, Racheli?
Intention.
Intention, right? So unlike Rambam, who spoke, who said, I guess, who implied that the judgment is about interpreting the action, okay? Rashi learns that we're judging their intention, saying, he had a good intention, okay? Or now here's the thing. I'm gonna reveal to you a secret Rashi, okay? And it's I redacted it, okay? And the reason why I redacted it is I don't want to reveal the context and give away too much yet, okay? So Rashi here says, "Dan," this is on Shabbos Kuf Chav Zayin Amud Beis. "Dan es chaver l'kav zechus, shu machrio l'zechus." It means that you tilt them to favor. V'amar lo chata li bezos. Anus haya. He did not sin against me in this. It was an accident or unavoidable or coerced. Those are 3 translations of anus. O latova niskaven, or he intended for good. Okay, so you could say, hold on, either he had a good intention or it was accidental, coerced, unavoidable. Okay, so that is 2. And then what's the third difference between Rashi and the Rambam here? The biggest one. Yeah, Vanessa?
I don't know if this is what you're going for, but Rashi really ties in for if you do this, they will judge you favorably from on high. Like
Correct.
he really emphasizes the like reward aspect of it. I don't know if reward's quite the
Yeah,
word,
correct.
but
Yeah, okay. So unlike Rambam, who doesn't give us a reason, benefit, or purpose for this, Rashi explicitly says, for if you judge him favorably, God will judge you favorably. Okay. So what are the questions and problems on Rashi? Yeah, Racheli.
One is, what if you never know like what that person intended? Like, should you just forever, I don't know, not judge them with clarity? Like, it's hard to know a person's intention.
No. So that's what Rashi's saying. Actually, I guess that's another thing. By the way, I should point this out. Okay, is unlike Rambam, who doesn't explicitly say this, Rashi. Oh, sorry. Let's put it this way. Unlike Rambam, who focuses on a scenario in which the person does an ambiguous action, okay, Rashi focuses on a scenario where the person's intent is not clear. Okay, so Rashi therefore says that if the intent is clear, then you don't, then Dan L'Chavos doesn't apply.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's really the case you were talking about is the case exactly where Rashi says you should be Dan L'Chavos.
Okay, I
Yeah.
see.
Now, here's the thing. I said I think that the Rambam would agree that if the action is clearly bad, then you don't have to be Dan L'Chavos. Okay. And I'm getting that from the fact that when he talks about, let's say, like the Tzaddik's case, he says, well, first of all, when he starts talking, the whole case he introduces is if you see someone do an action that if interpreted one way would be good, if interpreted another way would be bad. We're talking about an action that lends itself to interpretation. Okay. And same thing when he says every indication points to it being bad. We're still talking, Rambam is speaking in a language as though there is some measure of doubt here. So I think if the person does an unambiguously bad action, I don't think the Rambam is saying that you, like, again, in the murder case, I don't think the Rambam is saying, like, if a person murders, remember, halakhically, let's take witnesses, right? Where, like, you know, you ask the guy, hey, what are you doing? He says, I am trying to murder this person because this is an evil person, or this is a Jew, and Jews are evil, right? So, like, I don't think what I'm saying, well, it's possible he was just practicing the part for a play. Like, no, like, it's so I think we can assume, similar to Rashi, that the Rambam is saying if it is a clearly bad action, then you can you don't have to you're not Dan L'Chavos for a tzaddik. For the Russia is a good case. I'm not sure about the Russia case, but I think for the tzaddik, yes. Yeah, Tamar?
You maybe kind of answered this, but I feel like it's interesting because the examples that Rashi brings from the Gemara are like things where you might say that it's clearly a bad action.
So that's the thing.
Yeah.
I think the case, I think the real question is on the Rambam, okay? Okay, maybe it's not on the Rambam. Okay, cases like this, not paying a worker their wages is a bad action. How do we know?
Usher.
It's usher, okay, right? So that's why Rashi is only talking about judging the intent. But definitely it's usher, definitely it's a bad action, and you could take the guy to court. The homeowner could take the guy to court and sue him, but he just, according to Rashi, just has to assume that it was not the guy's fault or that he intended for good.
Okay, I see. I think I didn't understand something before. That makes sense.
Yeah. I think that's the best read of Rashi. Okay, now what are the questions and problems on Rashi? Yeah, Vanessa?
My biggest problem is the last, which I know is not really our focus, but why the focus on like receiving favor from Hashem for judging favorably? Like, what is
Okay.
that trying to teach us? What?
To me, that's the entire problem. Okay.
Oh, okay, cool.
So
Great.
okay, so you can ask, by the way, which I'm just going to put the question here because I don't know where else to put it, is what is the basis of the machlokas? This is not really on Rashi specifically, but machlokas between Rashi and Rambam. Okay, but then the question is, okay, what is the cause and effect relationship between you being Dan Eskol Ha'adam L'Kaf Zechus and God being Dan you L'Kaf Zechus? Okay, so I think that's the major question. Now, I have two other problems with that, other than just, there's a difference between a she'ela and a kushya. She'ela means a question seeking information. A kushya means that there's a problem here. Okay, so I think there's two problems here. Yeah, Tamar?
How could God judge you to any cop? He just knows what you're actually doing.
Exactly. Okay, right? Rashi explains the whole case of Dan L'Kaf Zechus. Oops, sorry, Dan. Let me try that again. Rashi explains the whole case of Dan L'Kaf. Can't type tonight. Zechus to be in a situation where you lack knowledge of the person's intentions. Okay, but God has perfect knowledge. of your intentions. Okay, so how can we even compare the two? Okay, in other words, you don't have to agree with this question. Okay, if someone said, well, of course, God being down the obstacles is different from you being down the obstacles, but to me, there's definitely like a mida keneged mida type implication here, and in many cases, you can transfer it directly to God. So, for example, I think if we said, if you behave mercifully towards someone, God will behave mercifully towards you. Well, in that case, my merciful actions are the same as God's merciful actions. I mean, they're not the same in that they come from the same place, but like the result is the same here. Like v'halach b'derechav, you are emulating God's ways. Here, though, God's judgment, even judgment is like a mashal. It's instantaneous. Like God doesn't have to weigh people's actions. So to me, like it's just not analogous. Okay, Racheli?
This reminds me, it's really just like a comment on this question. This reminds me of another story in the Gemara where it seems like a person's perspective causes Hashem to change his perspective, which is also confusing, but it's a story where like I think it's Eliyahu Hanavi was walking in the market. He met a Tana, and the Tana asked him like, what's Hashem doing right now? And he said he's repeating the words of Torah of all the Tanam except for Rabbi Meir. And then basically he's like, why? And he's like, because Rabbi Meir is teaching Elisha or Acher's Torah, which is bad and whatever. And then he says, don't you know that Rabbi Meir knows how to extract the good from the bad, the fruit from the peel, whatever. And he knows he's teaching good Torah and it's pure and whatever. And then Eliyahu says something like, and now Hashem is teaching Rabbi Meir's Torah. Something like
interesting.
that.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So same, whatever.
Yeah, Vanessa?
It's not related if that's okay. I think I think this is a more basic question than the question I asked, which is more like, why are we focusing on like Hashem giving merit at all? Like why, when I first read this, I assumed more it's for the sake of like pursuing peace between Adam and Chavero. Like I don't get why we would introduce God judging us favorably into the mix at all. Like, forget about like the Mida Keneged Nida issue. Like that, I think that's a separate issue. Than I think my issue is more like fundamental. Of like, why are we introducing this dynamic of like, if you do this, God will do Y at all?
Right. So Rashi is introducing it because the Gemara emphasizes it. Right. So you can ask it on the Gemara.
Okay.
I guess you can ask the question, why does Rashi, I guess, hold on, let me go back here. Why does Rashi like underscore this benefit as opposed to others? All right, that's a fair question.
I think it's not even just underscoring. I think he's saying like, we're doing this so that God will judge us favorably. I think that's like a totally different approach than like the Rambam, who's saying like, this is just how you act. This is the appropriate way to act.
Okay.
Period.
To be fair to Rashi, he does not say explicitly kidei, like in order that God will judge you favorably. He says, if you do this, God will judge you favorably. So by implication, he's offering this as a reason, but there are many reasons to do this. And so why doesn't Rashi give other reasons? Why does he give this reason?
Okay, that's fine. If that's
how I would ask
lots in Hebrew, that's fine. Okay.
Okay. Last question is like this to me, unless anyone has any other questions on this. Again, all of mine are extensions about this God thing. So my question is like this. Granted that God, okay, all right, let's say we can explain how and why God will judge you favorably, okay, as a result. But how is that fair? Okay, let's say I am a robber, a murderer, and a cheat, and so are you. But I judge people favorably, and you don't. Okay, is it really fair to say that God will judge my robbery, murder, and cheating differently simply because I also engage in the practice of judging people favorably, right? Seems unfair. And you can't just say, well, it means that God's going to judge you favorably for that action, because then just say, if you judge people favorably, God will reward you for it. Don't say God will judge you favorably, like in toto. Okay, so those are the questions. Okay, so I will just add the Rambam's questions to the chat, and then Rashi's questions to the chat. And now we open the floor for answers. And I think, if I may suggest, don't try to answer all these questions. Okay, let's try to just explain what is the main idea. Actually, let me set it up here. Okay, so big picture. Okay, so question is, what is the main idea according to the Rambam and according to Rashi? Okay, if we get answers to that, then I'll be happy, and then we'll go through and see what other questions we answer. But yeah, don't get caught up in the details. So what do you want to say? And I actually, do I want to get water? No, I don't want to get water. Okay, yeah. What do you guys say? And you can start with either one. For sometimes I feel like Rambam's easier, sometimes I feel like Rashi's easier. Or you could pull a move and show what do they both have in common. Okay, so let's take a step. Okay, so let's start with a question that several of you have mentioned here. Okay, which is, why do we have to judge people? Why do we have to be told to judge people at all? Okay, why can't we just suspend judgment? How would you answer that? Yeah, Vanessa?
The answer I've always heard is like, we're always judging. Like, it's a lot easier to just change the way you judge and to judge favorably than to just withhold from all judgment. Like,
Yeah.
we're always passing judgments. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and chalk this up to human nature. Okay, it's human nature to judge. Okay, and while it's possible for some people to suspend judgment, okay, most people can't. Okay, they're going to judge, and how are they usually going to judge? They're going to judge unfavorably. Okay, and again, I'm not saying everyone, I'm not saying every case. I'm saying that in a vacuum, statistically speaking, most people judge unfavorably. And I will give you a proof, which is the entire industry of gossip, celebrity gossip, and gossip. Like, that's why we have prohibitions against lashon hara and rechilus, because the average person will judge their fellow unfavorably. Okay, I think that's just reality. And if you say, well, not me, then great. Okay, but I think if you're honest, you could even find cases in yourself where you have judged people unfavorably. Okay, and I've given shiurim before, or on this, where or in one of the shiurs earlier this week, where someone said, actually, sorry, we'll make this into a second step. Okay, unless anyone has any questions on the first step, because if not, I'm going to ask why. Okay, why is the default judgment lechova and not lizchus? Which, by the way, this is the havamina. The havamina, well, this is not the havamina. This is why the mishnah is necessary, because if we don't tell people to judge someone favorably, they'll judge people unfavorably. But why? Yeah, Rachel?
I don't know if you're asking just like why humanly, but because it protects us. Like that way we're safer from being susceptible to harm in case.
Okay, so you could give an answer. Okay, and then I'm gonna challenge it. Okay, so the answer is for self-protection. Okay, and you could even throw in I'll say perhaps you can say evolutionarily, this serves us well. Okay, So my challenge is like this. I don't disagree that there are cases like this, but so maybe this is true in some cases, and maybe evolutionarily, we're programmed that way. Okay, or that's why we're programmed that way. That's why we're hardwired that way. Okay, but don't tell me that every time you judge someone unfavorably, that it's practical. Okay, and again, I point to the gossip columns. Okay, I think anytime a celebrity or a politician or a public figure does something a little sketchy, people are quick to judge them unfavorably and to assume the worst. And that celebrity has nothing to do with you, has nothing to do. Again, so evolutionarily, you can say that. Okay, fine. I won't argue with that. But I don't think that's the whole reason. Yeah, Vanessa?
I'm gonna sidestep the question, but I think the answer works. I think we don't have let's say in 10 times of judgment, 9 times you judge unfavorably, 1 time you judge favorably. I don't think there's any issue with the judging favorably. So we only have the injunction to not judge unfavorably because that's like, there's no reason to say, I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought.
Okay.
There's no issue with judging favorably. I don't think there's no issue with that because even you said before, in a situation where, like, let's say we have the issue of like the guy withholding wages, you can still judge him favorably, but take him to court. It doesn't put you in any danger. But the converse is an issue because it will cause discord and it will cause problems if you're just judging unfavorably and it's not worth it. If it is worthwhile, cool, then you're justified in it.
Right.
And that's what Rashi and Rambam are both saying. Like, you can, if the motive or intent or action becomes clear, depending on which commentator you're following, fine. Like, you're allowed to, like, once that becomes clear and you know that it's a bad thing, you can judge it and you can protect yourself and do all that evolutionary fun stuff. But you have to, the whole point of Judaism is like overcoming your desire. I'm not speaking to
Okay, I'm unclear. Are you answering the question, which is why do people judge people unfavorably?
I think I'm sidestepping it a little.
Okay, so I'll come back to what you're saying. I really want to stick on this on the trail here. Yeah, Racheli?
Probably because it makes people feel better about themselves.
Okay, I think that's an answer. That's a good answer also. Yeah, Tamara, what were you gonna say? I'm gonna hold writing this in case I can.
Yeah, I was gonna say also like people get a kick out of it. Maybe other things like it's aggressive sometimes, depending on the situation.
So I happen to think, and people could disagree with this, okay, but I happen to think that all of these reasons that you mentioned are good. It all boils down to ego. Okay, is that in some cases it's aggressive. Okay, so that's, for example, like the late in Mishlei is someone who's always finding fault with people. Okay, in others it's to make themselves feel superior. Okay, in others it's because it's sadistic. Okay, and they get pleasure out of seeing other people suffer, and are essentially using other people's lives for their own enjoyment. Okay, yeah, Racheli?
Also, this might be similar to it makes them feel superior, but I think that, at least in my experience, I judge people in areas where I maybe subconsciously feel uncomfortable in that area. So it's like trying to make myself feel better that, oh, look, it's not just me. And like, it's not, I don't know, it's not so bad that I'm like that or whatever.
Okay, I think that's a good example of that. Okay, and I think that's a good transition now to, I want to take up the Rambam first. Okay, so according to the Rambam, okay. Oh, so this is why the Torah has to guide you to judge people favorably. Okay, so now let's dissect the Rambam here. Okay, which is like this. Okay, and I'm going to take this as a step, which is okay. Okay, in many cases, people want to judge the tzaddik favorably, okay? But Rambam addresses the cases where they want to judge him unfavorably, okay? So my question is, why are people inclined in these cases to judge the tzaddik the tzaddik specifically, to judge specifically the tzaddik unfavorably. Okay, now I think it's not unrelated to what we just said, but I just want to talk it out for the tzaddik, the Russia, and then Benoni. Okay, yeah, Racheli?
It makes them more relatable, and like there's just this idea of like I don't know, something similar to what I just said about like we might think, oh, they're just on such a high level, and it's how can people be like that? And then there's this tendency to be like, oh, they can't be like that. We're all kind of similar in that.
So I think that there's that. I think the way you said it before is actually better for the Rambam. Actually, let me call on Tamar first, and then I'll write a summary. Yeah, Tamar.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, if it's in terms of making you feel good about yourself, it both like removes the humbling influence of a tzaddik who's greater than you.
Okay, good, great. So I think on the I don't want to call it the tame end, but let's say like at at best, okay, it makes you feel better about yourself, because it knocks the tzaddik off his pedestal and relieves you of the pressure to live up to that, okay, and also allows you to identify with the tzaddik. That's what Racheli meant when she said relatable with the tzaddik, and feel like you're closer to that than you were before. Okay, before you saw him fail. Okay, that's at best. At worst, okay, what would be like a more sinister or bad midos method of judging a tzaddik unfavorably? Yeah, Vanessa?
The vibe of like, oh, these rabbis, they always act so high and mighty, but clearly they're full of it. Like,
okay,
what they're,
right.
I'm sorry I don't know how to word that better, but like,
no, that's exactly.
I've heard that like in real life. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Oh, they act so rabbi, but they're not really so good in the end. Like, it's all a farce. No one could actually act like whatever, all that.
Yeah. Okay. Good. That's good. Yeah. Tomorrow, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, like undermining the whole like premise of the idea of a tzaddik, even.
Okay, good. It gives them an excuse to undermine the whole idea of a tzaddik, or to cancel a particular role model and say, he was fake the whole time. Okay. And this allows them to justify, their abandonment of striving to be like the tzaddik. Okay. Yeah, Vanessa, did you hand a new, or is that from before?
Oh, sorry.
Okay. So now before we universalize, let's do the Russia. Okay. So in many cases, obviously, people want to judge the Russia unfavorably. Okay. So for example, I don't think that people who view Hitler as a Russia want to see the good in Hitler. Most people don't. Okay. But what about cases where they do? Why would they want to do that? So what would you say? Yeah, Racheli?
I think it's kind of scary to like believe that genuine evil exists, and it's easier to rationalize it away by saying like, oh, they had a hard childhood, or they're just traumatized, hurt people.
That's an interesting answer.
I think it's true, but also it can be a way of saying like, yeah, okay, I said what I want.
Okay, no, I think that is an interesting answer, which is that it could be because they don't like confronting the idea that such evil exists. Okay, and that's definitely, I mean, the place where you really see that is in the non-propaganda-driven Holocaust deniers, is like the people who just like innocent average people who just did not want to believe that the Nazis were doing that, because it's horrific to think that that's happening. Yeah, Vanessa?
Sorry, I forgot my hand was up. I think I mostly agree with Racheli. Like, they don't want to, especially like today you have like gray villain this and like gray morality and everyone thing. I think when you don't judge the Russia unfavorably, then you're not condemning the stuff that you might secretly want to do or harbor or.
Okay, I think that's more on the track that I'm thinking, at least. Yeah, Tamar?
I was gonna say, I think this is kind of a special case, but sometimes you have someone who you can see that they're Russia, but for some reason they're like likable.
Yeah.
And then maybe there's like a conflict in that way because you have things that like maybe this is what like Vanessa was saying, you like identify with them.
That's a good one also, is that yeah, okay, I'm gonna hear everyone and I'll write. Yeah, Racheli?
Okay, I think this is similar, but maybe you just pity the person or you just feel bad for them and you just don't want to be the person who like enacts strict judgment on them.
Okay. So that's interesting. Okay, you guys are giving such noble reasons. Okay, so I'm gonna say just to summarize here, the pity thing and what Tamara said is you identify with them. Okay. And I guess, at best, this is for noble reasons. Noble reasons like you pity them, noble reasons, or like enjoyment related reasons, like you like them. That's like what Tamara was saying. Okay. But I think that there is another dynamic as well. Okay. At worst, it's because the existence of Rishayim who are like you allows you to rationalize your own less than ideal behavior. Okay. And the more human you see the Russia, the easier it is to identify with them and to lower your guard about engaging in similar behaviors or ways of thinking. Okay. And I think that is a danger. So in other words, I'm not saying I'm saying it's necessarily that you want to emulate them, but let's say, for example, I'm speaking like out of my comfort zone here. People who listen to rap music that is about a life of crime, it will normalize those behaviors, and you will then start looking up to people who are living that life, and that's going to bring out all those tendencies in you. Okay. So I think that does happen. And the more you make excuses and identify with them, I mean, again, I just, a recent example here is, I just got done reading Brandon Stanton's new book, Humans of New York book called Dear New York. And, he always does a great job of featuring people from all walks of life. And you see these people who are criminals, and he brings out the humanity in them. And you do feel like, oh, this is a person just like me. But the more you feel that, then the easier it is to not feel as bad about your bad qualities, and your behaviors that are not so good. Okay. So I think that's for the Russia. Okay. So now the question is like this. According to the Rambam, okay, sorry, I guess let's say, having said all this, okay, according to the Rambam, what is halacha doing? Okay, not Pirkei Avos. Okay, because we're not at Pirkei Avos yet. This is baseline halacha. What is halacha doing by forcing you to judge the tzaddik favorably, even when it looks bad, and to judge the Russia unfavorably, even when it looks good? Yeah, Racheli?
It's forcing you to look up to good and look down to bad.
Yes. Okay, good. So that's a positive way of saying it. But given what we've just said, we've really emphasized the negative consequences of judging the Russia favorably and judging the tzaddik unfavorably. So can we put it in terms of the negative also?
Yeah, so just then not idolizing bad or not justifying bad and not diminishing good.
Okay, so here's how I'm going to put it. Okay, it's forcing you to counteract all the ways we just said, all of the dynamics, the dynamics we just listed, which are detrimental to your character development, okay, and your moral perfection. All right. So in other words, like I'll put it this way. Sorry, and then I'll say what you said. And to maintain an idealistic image, okay, and Freud called this an ego ideal, okay, of the tzaddik, and I don't know if he used the same term for the Russia, but I'll just say and the Russia, okay, meaning like an idealized picture, so that you can emulate them and strive and aspire to them. Okay, so yeah, okay, that's what I think he's doing with the tzaddik and the rasha. Because that's why halacha is saying there is this tendency that you're going to have when you see a tzaddik doing something really bad to want to judge it unfavorably. But if you do that, it's going to harm your character development because you're going to be giving into all those tendencies we just said. So you have to force yourself to think about him as good, not because it's necessarily true, but because it's going to have a better impact on your moral compass. Okay, is that clear?
Yeah.
Okay, so now the question is, what did I just do? Okay, now the question is like this: why doesn't halacha mandate that you judge I'm going to call him a Benoni, okay? I know he's not a Benoni, but an unknown person favorably. And then the second question we're going to ask after that is, why is it midas chasidus to do so? So we have to answer this question first. Why doesn't halacha require you to judge a Benoni, favorably? I think you can answer based on how we said for the tzaddik and the rasha. Yeah, Vanessa?
Well, because you don't know whether they're a tzaddik or rasha, it's not going to involve your moral compass the same way.
Correct.
You're gonna more or less you're gonna interact with them the same way you'd interact with yourself and like put them on the same level of like good or evil. You're not like, yeah, whatever I said.
Okay, good. Judging the favorably unfavorably isn't going to mess up your moral compass in the same way that it does for the tzaddik and rasha. So halacha doesn't require you doesn't legislate. Yeah, Racheli?
I don't know if I'm like going out on a limb here, but also doesn't Rambam say you're supposed to view yourself as a Benoni in a way? So then like you shouldn't be too quick to judge yourself favorably or unfavorably. You should
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, that's creative. That's creative. Okay. I'll put that here. Possibly this helps you to judge yourself more as a Benoni. Okay. Yeah. See, the only reason I'm putting in parentheses here is I'm the one who's using the term Benoni. The Rambam is just saying an unknown person, So it's
right.
not
I got that.
Yeah. Okay. Now, why is it midas chasidus to judge an average person favorably? And I think here you can give several answers. And there's one right answer, but they're all valid answers. Now, there's one answer I think that I can prove that this is what the Rambam actually holds, but I think there are good answers you can give. So what do you think? What would be midas chasidus about judging even a Benoni favorably? Yeah, Rachel?
I'm thinking of the quote like, who is wise? One who learns from everyone. So in a way, like you are trying to see the good in every person so that you can gain more good behavior
Okay, good.
yourself.
Trying to see the good in every person will help you learn from them and you'll benefit. Okay. Whereas as yeah, I think that's good enough. Yeah. Okay. All right. Anyone else have an answer?
So I'm not sure if this is an answer. So just to clarify one point, and then I guess so what I'm going to say, like, so are we saying that the Torah in requiring us to judge people a certain way, it's primarily not trying to like get rid of a person's aggressive emotion against individuals, but rather to for the tzaddik or rasha to like get rid of really like these aggressive emotions against more like ideas, morality, the Torah.
Right. That's what I'm saying. That's what we're saying for the Rambam. Correct. Yeah.
Right. So then if you say it's not, so then you could say as if for an individual, a normal person, the Torah does not require a person to like, it's not mandating perfection in that area, but certainly for someone who's on the level to like work on their aggressive emotions towards individuals, that's very important.
Okay, so if you're on the level to curtail, or I guess to remove your aggressive emotions towards your fellow human, then you should definitely work on that. Okay. Right. So, and it's not just aggressive. I mean, we used aggressive earlier. I'm going to say aggressive, competitive, egoistic. Okay. Like all of these things by practicing judging other people favorably. So again, like there's this tendency, I didn't say this clearly enough before. There's this tendency of you want to be winning the race, right? And you want to be better than the other person. And I'll bring a raya for this, which is, and this is the type of thing, there's certain psukim that if you tell it to the right person, it could totally destroy them. Okay, so there is a certain personality, Koheles destroys a lot of fantasies. There's a certain personality that they make their entire life around self-improvement. Okay. So Koheles says in 4:9, no, 4:4. Yeah. Ra'isi ani es kol amal. I have seen all toil as kol kishron hamasan. I've seen all, I think the modern word self-improvement. Okay. Literally like, perfection of actions. Kihi kinas ishme re'ehu. It's all a person's jealousy for his fellow against his fellow, or like competitiveness, as we would say. Gamze hevel rus ruach. Okay. So like, it's competitive. Like when you see, that's why, we say like, don't rejoice at someone else's downfall. Why do you rejoice? Because aggressiveness and competitiveness, but yeah, like that guy's losing now. What a loser, So like, if you are in the position to work on that, you definitely should work on that. Okay. And that's going to be good for you in Midas Chasidus in terms of your perfection. Okay, good. That is a great answer. And that's what I thought the Rambam's answer was. And I'm not, again, these are all right answers. Okay. But anyone think of a third answer? And one of you mentioned it in passing. Okay. It did not come up again. It came up once. What is another benefit to judging your average fellow person favorably? Yeah, Racheli?
It just increases positive relationships, like
Good.
practically.
It increases. What word do we have for?
Bein adam lechavero.
Yeah, so that's the genre, and then what's the state we're trying to achieve? Bein adam lechavero.
Shalom.
Shalom. Okay, shalom bein adam lechavero. Okay, so now I'm going to unredact the Rashi. Okay, so there's a Gemara in Shabbos before the one that we did. Okay, that says like this. So I'm going to borrow an idea from Rashi and show that the Rambam holds this. Okay, so there's Gemara that says like this. Amar Rav Yehuda bar Shila. This is on Kuf Chaf Zayin Amud Aleph and Beis. By the way, we are going overtime, but we're going to go probably about 15 more minutes. Okay, so if you have to go, you have to go. Don't stay for politeness. All right. Amar Rav Yehuda bar Shila. Amar Rabbi Asi. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Shisha dvarim adam ochel perasem balam zeh laken kaim l'olam haba. So there are 6 things that a person eats their fruits in this world, and the principle remains for them in the world to come. The Eluhain, here they are. Haknasas orchin, hospitality to guests. Bikr cholim, visiting the sick. Iyun tefillah, analysis of tefillah. Hashkamas beis midrash, getting up early for the beis midrash. Hamagada ban of the Talmud Torah, one who raises his kids for Torah study. Va'adanis l'chavera l'kavzachus. Okay, so great thing, fine. But then it says, Eini, is this true? V'ha anan tanan. But we also learned in a Mishnah, Elu devarim sha'adam ose osam v'ochel perasem b'lamazeva keren kayim l'olam haba. So same thing. These are things that you eat, you enjoy their pleasure in this world, and the principle remains in the world to come. Ve'eluhein, here they are. Kibud av'eim, honoring your parents. Gimulus chasadim, acts of kindness. Hava shalom be'am l'chavero, bringing peace between man and his fellow. Talmud Torah connected kulam, and Talmud Torah is equal to all of them. Okay, so that's a different list. Hani in midi achroni lo. So it implies these yes, others no. Okay, so in other words, it's not that all midrashim, all agadata has to be consistent because there's different authors, but it does say these are the things, and the other one says these are the things. So it's incumbent upon us to ask, like, is this an exhaustive list? Are each of these exhaustive lists? And if so, then how do we reconcile them? So answer is easy. Hani nami, hani shaychi. Gemara answers these two, meaning the long list is included in the short list. Okay, so I'm going to show you what this is like on the chart first, and then I'll show you the Rashi explaining it. Rashi is going to say that hospitality towards guests, visiting the sick, and analysis of tefillah are all included in acts of kindness. Rising early to the Beis Midrash and raising children for Torah study is included in Torah study, and then judging one's fellow favorably is included in bringing peace between a man and his fellow. Okay, how so? So Rashi says like this. So that's clear, right? Hospitality and visiting the sick, that's clearly acts of kindness. Now, Tefillah, hainu bichlal gimlus chasadim. Analysis of tefillah is also included in acts of kindness. How so? Dichsiv, as it says, Gomel nafsho ish chassid. In Mishlei, it says, one who bestows good to himself is a man of kindness. This is, by the way, a good, not you need a proof for this, but this is a good proof that tefillah is selfish. Tefillah is not for God, it's for you. And the more you study tefillah, the more you're going to be benefiting yourself. Okay, Hashkamas Beis Midrash V'gidol Banim LaTalmud Torah, rising up early to the Beis Midrash and raising your kids in Talmud Torah, Hainu Talmud Torah. That's part of learning. And then Dan Eschaver Lakav Zechus, judging your fellow favorably, Bichlal Hava Shalom, that's included in bringing peace. Demitokshu Machriel Zechus, because since you are deciding him in favor of Zechus, V'amar Lochatali Bezos, Anushaya or Latovan Iskaven, and you're saying, he didn't sin against me, it was an accident, it was unavoidable. Yesh Shalom name, there will be peace between them. Okay, so I don't think we really need to explain why this is the case. I think you could just look at the world around you. This is one of Jonathan Haidt and Greg Lukianoff's claims in The Coddling of the American Mind, that one of the reasons why we're in such a mess now is because people are quick to not give others the benefit of the doubt. So someone says a statement online or a public statement, and people immediately jump on them and assume the worst, and then assume that this is indicative of internal, rot, and then everyone is at each other's throats. But if you just give someone the benefit of the doubt, everyone will get along. Giving someone the benefit of the doubt, you put yourself in their shoes, and that helps you identify with them. That's also good. Another reason is the fundamental attribution error, which is a cognitive bias where you basically attribute, I'm just looking for a definition here. Yeah, is a cognitive attribution bias in which observers underemphasize situational and environmental factors for the behavior of an actor while overemphasizing dispositional or personality factors. So, for example, Wikipedia gives an example here of, in other words, observers tend to overattribute the behaviors of others to their personality. For example, he's late because he's selfish, or he doesn't care about others, or he's lazy, and underattribute them to the situation or context. For example, he's late because he got stuck in traffic. Okay, so in other words, you are always quick to make those excuses for yourself, but not your fellow. But if you did this for your fellow, you're going to get along better. Okay, fine. Now, how do I know that the Rambam holds this? And how do I know? Okay, fine. So how do I know the Rambam holds this? So I forgot to include this on the source sheet. In Hilchos Talmud Torah. Okay. Oh, sorry. Hilchos Deos. Yeah. Okay, Hilchos Deos, which is about character traits. He has a whole parak that begins, Kashem she'achacham nikar b'chachmasa uvadeosav, who muvdal behen mishar ha'am, just as a wise person is recognizable in his wisdom and in his character traits, who muvdal behen mishar ha'am, and he's distinct through them from the rest of the people. Kach tzarech she'he nikar b'masav uv'ma'achalo uv'mashkehu uv'vilaso uv'atzias tracho uv'diburo uv'hilucho uv'mabusho uv'kilkol dvar uv'masano uv'matano. He needs to also be differentiated or recognizable in his actions, his food, his eating, his drink, his relations, his going to the bathroom, his speech, his walk, his dress, the way he goes about his affairs, his business. All of these actions need to be especially beautiful and perfected. Okay, so this is a whole parak about just conduct of Talmidei Chachamim. Okay. So you scroll down, and then he says, and I think this one I did include. Yeah, he says like this. Talmid Chachamim, a scholar, a student of the wise, lo yehi tzoek v'tzaveach b'shas diburo kebehemos v'chayos. He shouldn't scream and shout and cry out like livestock and wild animals. V'lo yagbiya kol b'yoser. He should not raise his voice excessively. Okay, so I'm very bad at this. Okay, I'm especially when giving a Zoom shiur, I speak very loudly. Okay, it's what I teach in general. Okay, so I'm not in this category yet. Or maybe it doesn't mean like that. Maybe it means like yelling at people. Okay, fine. I don't yell at people very often. His speech should be pleasant with all people. And when he speaks gently, he should take care to not go so far as to appear like one of the arrogant. So I guess there is a way of like speaking in as if you think you're so important or such a hot shot. Okay, so you shouldn't do that. Va'umaktim shalom l'chol adam. He should greet every person preemptively. I think we did this one, right? You should preemptively greet every person, so that they should get along with him or feel comfortable with him. V'dan es kol ha'adam l'kav zechus, and judge every person favorably. Mesaper b'sheva chavero v'eno mesaper b'gnuso klal, and speak in praise of his friend and not speak about his degradation at all. Ohev shalom v'rodev shalom, and love peace and pursue peace. So if you had to define the common denominator of the paragraph or the theme of this halacha, what would you say it is? Yeah, Kelly?
Shalom.
Shalom, good. Okay, right? Is shalom in al-chavero. Okay, is that we know this is what the Rambam holds, because he codifies dan l'kav zechus specifically in the perek of superlative conduct for Talmidei Chachamim, in the halacha about shalom bein Talmidei Chachamim lechavero. Yeah, Vanessa, you had your hand up?
No,
Okay.
Sorry.
Now, another thing also, we also know from here that the Rambam does not hold that dan kol adam l'kaf zechus is a baseline halacha. Okay, it's only for Talmidei Chachamim. It's only halacha for Talmidei Chachamim, meaning like obviously anyone could do it, but like it's for them. So that I think is a raya against anyone who says that the Rambam holds that this is mandated for people. Okay, so there's the Rambam. Okay, okay. So now I guess we're going a little bit over 15 minutes more. Okay, now Rashi. Okay, I think Rashi is going to fall into place here. Okay, so Rashi, we had all these questions about how does why is Rashi underscore this benefit? The main question is like, how does God judge you favorably if you judge other people favorably? Okay, and remember, Rashi does not care about who you're judging. Okay, let's hold off on that part. Okay, let's just assume Rashi's position, pretend we never saw the Rambam and that this refers to everyone. Okay, so the question here is how does Rashi hold? What's going on here? How does judging other people favorably result in God judging you favorably? So I'm going to start us off here. Okay, which is Rashi would agree with everything we said about judging a Benoni favorably. Okay, you're learning from them. You're working on your egoistic default view of other people. You're bringing shalom, your shalom bein adam lachavero. Okay, but how does this get you a better judgment from Hashem? That's the question. And I'll give you a hint. I guess some people a hint is if you've learned with me before, then you'll know what it is, especially in the tefillah shiurim. You'll know what it is that God cares about. What does God want from us, ultimately, as a human being? And that's my hint for you.
So maybe like the Torah doesn't mandate perfection, and really telling someone they shouldn't judge someone is like the ultimate mandating imperfection, because basically it's saying you can't think a certain way.
Right.
The Torah doesn't do that. It says you can't say lashon hara.
Right.
But
right.
really, if someone achieves that level, meaning works on themselves, does Torah mitzvot, and achieves internal perfection, so then that is really like a very important achievement, like, because like the Torah mandates that we shouldn't, like we said with the tzaddik and the rasha, the Torah does mandate things relating to perfection, just not, I guess, in this area. But if you achieve it, then you God will judge you favorably, like you're on a high level.
So you're making an important step, which is that it's not that being done l'kaf zechus is an isolated action, okay, that God will reward you for by judging everything you do. I lost the mouse. Okay, everything you do in a superior way. Okay, rather, like Erica said, a person who successfully does this is a higher level person bichlal, okay, in general, in all areas, okay? And I'm going to transition here into, I think the pshat here for judging you heaven will judge you favorably is, I've shown this in a lot of shiurim, but my hashgacha pratis chart, okay, which I'm trying to have the Rishonik view of hashgacha pratis. So there are a lot of differences, but the thing that they all agree with is on the x-axis you have on the left side distant from Hashem, and on the right side you have close to Hashem, and then on the y-axis on the lower side you have hashgacha klalis, that your life is governed by the laws of nature, and on the higher side your life is governed by hashgacha pratis. And the Rishonik view is the closer you are to Hashem, the more your life is governed by hashgacha pratis, and the further away you are from Hashem, the more you're just abandoned to nature. Okay, now there's a lot of machlokus about what closeness to Hashem qualifies. So is it specifically knowledge? Is it intellectual perfection? Is it midos perfection? Is it actions and mitzvos? So that's a whole debate, okay? But the point is like this, is I'm going to put this in terms of truth-seeking, because that's the thing that makes you human, okay? Is that, and then I'll do the others by extension. So the idea is someone who judges others favorably is putting themselves in a superior, actually I'll do all of them, in a superior position, okay, intellectually, because they're being more objective, okay, and not allowing their ego to cloud their thinking, okay, and that's what I mean by objective. I mean, it's not that you're necessarily getting the truth because you don't know what the person intended, but you're removing your gut emotion from the picture, okay. They're also in a better position, in midos. Oops, sorry. In midos. What's going on here? In midos, okay. For all the reasons we said. Okay, and in ma'aseh, in action, okay, because you're actually promoting peace, promoting peace, okay. If you do this, you will be under a higher level of hashgacha pratis, okay, and that's what I mean by AKA, heavenly judgment, all right, and since you're a more perfected person. Okay, but you're a more perfected person in a very fundamental way. It's not just, this is not like if you give to, put on tefillin, light Hanukkah candles, you get a specific reward. This is like Eric was saying, it's like there's some, it's like a very, very, very high level where you're regulating your thoughts to be in line with these like ethical and objectives. But I'm just saying like that this is for everyone here. Okay, like in all these areas. Okay, so that's what I think Rashi's saying here. Okay, now let's just wrap it up, okay, because we've already gone way over time. So can we define the machlokas between the Rashi and the Rambam? And I don't think we have to define it in the sense of like getting down to what are they arguing about, because you don't have to say they're arguing, but how do you characterize the difference between the two? And the form of the answer is going to be like, Rambam holds that the the address of Don, and then I don't know, address. Yeah, what do you want to say here? Yeah, Racheli?
I'm not sure, but maybe that Rambam says it's more about peace between man and his fellow. Like the reason you're being done l'kaf zechus is to just increase shalom in the practical world, and then Rashi is saying like your goal here is to increase your ethical perfection in God's lens.
Okay, that's a really good definition. In my answer, I want to include not just what the Mishnah is saying about the Shalom thing, but I want to include the tzaddik and the Rasha thing also, because only because Rashi like deliberately doesn't tell us about that. He's only focusing on this. And according to Rashi, it is interesting, by the way. Side note, what's the nafkamina? What's the case that they would actually practically argue? Seemingly, like this is not just a theoretical machlokas. There is a practical machlokas.
Like judging a Rasha if you don't know his intention.
Exactly. Judging a Rasha, if a Rasha does something ambiguous or looks good, Rashi says assume he has good intentions, and Rambam says don't assume he has good intentions. Yeah. So here's how I want to put it. Okay, Rambam holds that this this whole inyan of judging people, and this is not going to be the most precise way to say it, of judging people, is about how to calibrate your, I'm going to call it moral compass. I don't know if that's the right term, okay, but I like it because it involves calibration. Your moral compass based on your interactions with different kinds of people, okay? So judging a tzaddik, so I'm not going to type this out, okay? In other words, you interact with a tzaddik, you're inclined to judge him one way, but that can mess up your moral development in a specific way. And if you encounter a Rasha and judge him in one way, that'll mess up your moral development in another way. You interact with a Benoni, that will mess up your judgment in the way of like ego or promoting non-shalom. So you should calibrate it this way, okay? And so it's all about like, in other words, like I'll just say, how will my interaction with this type of person impact my moral development? Okay. Whereas Rashi is concerned with I'm going to just say like training yourself in this mental activity that will ultimately bring you closer to God's value system. Okay. Of truth seeking, good midos. Hold on a second. Midos and shalom. In other words, like for Rashi, it's about for Rambam, it's about how does this affect my development? Okay. For Rashi, it's about practicing this technique. Okay, that's as close as I could get the definition. I'm sure a greater mind could get it clear. Okay, but I think that at least explains it. Okay, very quickly, I'm not even going to write out any answers. I just want to go through and show that we answered a bunch of questions. Okay, so what's the context of the judging? So this is normal human interaction context. You don't have to go out of your way to find people to judge favorably. And what triggers the obligation, according to the Rambam, is you see the ambiguous action. According to Rashi, it's anyone does anything that is negative, seemingly, right? And you don't know the intention. Okay, what are the parameters? How far do you have to go? So this is a big takeaway here. Okay, I don't think that Rashi or the Rambam is really saying that that you're being required to distort your mind. I think we should view this is as psychological counterbalances or putting yourself in a certain frame of mind because it's going to have a good effect. Okay, I don't think they're saying that you have to deny what your mind is telling you. Okay, it's just like in the same way, lahavdil, if you know you're in a bad mood and that bad mood is going to detrimentally affect the way you interact with people, so you put on a song that you really like and it cheers you up so that you'll interact with people better. That's the kind of thing. You're not messing with your mind. You're just presetting your emotional reactions in a way that's conducive to your moral development or to practicing this skill. Okay. How Zechusi is Zechus? Rambam is just saying interpret it as good, but he's not saying how far. The Gemara says you have to go like pretty far in terms of getting it to baseline. Rashi is just saying assume that they have a good intention or that it was not intentional. Okay. What's included in an act of judging? Are you interpreting their actions to see the good in it, or positing an intention or something else? Are you pronouncing judgment? Seems like they're both just saying you have to look at it, judging it in your mind, okay? And by the way, I just want to really quickly quote a Rabbeinu Yonah that is important that we discovered in our Mishlei shiur on Monday, which is, I'm just going to read the tail end of this Rabbeinu Yonah. Rabbeinu Yonah on Mishlei 17:4 says, if you hear something bad about someone, you should not believe it nor repeat it, nor should you let your love or honor of your fellow restrain him from being cautious out of mere doubt until it becomes truly clear to him. However, he should be wary in his heart and protect himself concerning that which was said about him through Lashon Hara. As our sages said, although it's not proper to accept Lashon Hara, one must still be concerned about it. So the Hebrew there is, I don't know where he's quoting from. Lashon Hara, af al pi she'ein roy lekablo, ach yesh lachush alav. You should be worried about it. So I feel like that needs more press. In other words, I think I give this example on Monday night, is, let's say, I don't know, let's say like your kid has a friend who you've heard rumors about is a kleptomaniac, okay? So you shouldn't believe it, but you should hide your belongings, or you can hide your belongings, okay, to take precaution, okay? Why do we have to judge at all? Why can't we suspend judgment? We said that it's human nature to judge, and usually based on ego. Does kol adam mean really kol adam? Do you have to judge Hitler favorably? According to the Rambam, no. According to Rashi, interestingly, yes. Okay, and that's a big thing, and I happen to agree with Rashi here. Not that you have to judge that what he was doing is good, but I do think that every person thinks that they are doing good, okay? And it does not mean that you have to view the actions as good, but every person is doing what they think is actually good, okay? And even if they're being selfish, they think that that's good for them. And I think that that is an important thing to know just in psychology, okay? What's our Havamina? Why do we have to be told this? Because we are inclined to judge people unfavorably. Okay, why? What's the purpose? According to the Rambam, it's to bring shalom. According to Rashi, it's to get a good judgment, or that's just a benefit. What's the baseline halacha? What's the lifnim mishur sedin? We answer that according to the Rambam. Who's the intended audience? So really, the judges, according to the Rambam, it's the judges and Talmidei Chachamim, but everyone is relevant to everyone. And according to Rashi, he doesn't really say, but you can assume it's according to everyone. Okay, Rambam, how do you define someone as a tzaddik and know that you're right? So I think this is really kind of beyond the scope of this. The Rambam just goes with public reputation, okay, and being well known. So I assume he's just saying it's someone who you know for sure is in the tzaddik category. And same thing with the Russia. That's how I'm taking it, okay? You can't know inside someone's heart. Only God can know that, okay? The hidden things are for God, okay? We can only judge from people. And he's saying that you have to be known. Are there cases where there are tzaddikim who are counterfeits? 100%, okay? Are there charlatans? 100%, okay? Are you going to get it right every time? No, okay? But you should, if there keep on being bad rumors about this person, that changes things, okay? So that creates a different situation, okay? I know I'm not going into depth on that, but that's my stance on this. What about people who you do know, but who are neither tzaddikim nor shaim? What's the halacha there? So we know the halacha according to the Rambam there is you don't have to judge them favorably, okay? We know that from the Hilchos Deos that we read. Why does the Rambam care about the known status? We answered that. Rambam doesn't state the purpose. Are you trying to get at the truth or something else? You're trying to get at something else, which is shalom. Rashi, what's the basis of the machlokas? We answered that. Why does Rashi underscore this benefit as opposed to others? I think because the Gemara does it. And I don't know Rashi's view of Pirkei Avos enough to say which benefits he lists and which ones he doesn't. What's the cause and effect relationship? We explained that. Rashi explains, yeah, God has perfect knowledge of your intentions. Yeah, we're not saying that God judges in the same way that you're judging, okay? We're saying that God judges you favorably, meaning that you become a recipient of a higher level of divine interaction of Hashgacha Pratis. And how is it fair? Well, it's fair because we're saying that you need to be on a very, very high level to do this. And this brings you to a higher level. Okay, so we may not have answered all the details of all the questions, but I think we did a pretty good job. Okay, and the main takeaway here is remember that judging people favorably, okay, this is the takeaway from these two Mefarshim, you're not trying to get at the truth, okay? You are engaging in the act of judging people favorably because of its effect on your character. According to the Rambam, it's based on the interaction with a particular kind of person. According to Rashi, it's to practice this tool of removing your emotions and your ego from judgments and setting yourself up to have good interactions with people. Okay, but neither of them say it's about really trying to get at the truth. Whew. Okay. See, on my my earlier shiur, I had to give it in an hour, and I wanted to be thorough. So I'm glad that you guys stuck around and that we were able to be thorough. So thank you. Do you have any preferences as to whether you want to do the rest of the Mishnah of K'nei L'cha Chaver and Aseh L'cha Rav, or do you want to go back to the Olam Haba stuff, which is the next Mishnah that we were at? Any preferences? I'll turn off the recording. Okay. All right. I'll take a vote anyway, but I see 2 votes for this one. Okay. Thanks everyone. Have a good night, and thanks for coming. Talk to you later.
Is there class?
Thank
Thanks so
you.
much.
Sorry, is there class what?
Is there class tomorrow?
Yes, there is.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Bye.